The elimination of property taxes, I hear you. I hear it every day. I hear it all the time. And I am going to fight for that as hard as I can. These people are so evil. And we have to be strong. And I was in full support of raising it to the first degree. And that is now the law. The slogan. And it was a shocker on how big the swamp is and how powerful it is. And that was probably my biggest shocker of the session. It really kind of hit me in the face that we have got to get term limits through. We have got to do it. And I think that we will eliminate a big portion of the swamp. But above all, we have to protect our farmers and our ranchers. It is going to be more conclusive. We are going to get more scientific evidence from more sources that we should have done in the first place. Because we as Texans love our property rights. We want our government out of our life. We love the rural aspect of our life, as you said, in Johnson County particularly, in my district, but also the conservative grassroots principles that are in this district, and I always put that first. In my mind, it was so important to bring all and every concept of eliminating property tax to that hearing. Whether I'm in district or whether I'm in Austin, I am constantly thinking of my district, of the people, how I should and can support them in any way. We have to look at the taxes in Texas that are burdening everyone. Businesses, property owners, individuals. And I thought my district, and when I campaigned, I heard about the budget, how bloated it is. Don't support it, and I did not. I voted against the budget. And on it, what made me proud is that I thought of my district during that journey and how the grassroots conservative voters here in Johnson County would feel if I supported using their tax dollars to fund an industry that is now thriving in California and bring them to Texas. So on a committee of 9, 7 voted for it, 1 didn't vote, walked out, and I voted against it. And I think that was probably my proudest vote. So those were 2 big no votes that I was very proud to take forward. One of the ways we can do that is to make sure we rein in local spending, all spending rates. Well, guess what? In 10, 20 years, maybe a generation from now, we may be out of water. All because they accepted the enticement of an addition to our tax base. We have to be so careful on this. I'm looking forward to hitting the floor running in the next session, first and foremost with the elimination of property tax. That so much of the swamp is because of the longevity of some of these elected officials. And we have got to continue fighting that. So we cannot let up on the securing of the border. That is a big, big thing affecting all of our communities. So I look for major legislation to be introduced on that. It just came to the top of everyone's list in the last session, and that is these data centers. The consumption of water is astronomical, millions of gallons a day. We have to make sure that our water and our power covers and safeguards and protects our citizens before anything else. But when I got back to district and I opened my office, I realized this is my job. Most importantly, first and most important job that I need to do if I'm reelected is to eliminate property tax. And as far as my district representation, please know that I am always available and I will always help any of you out with any issue, large or small, that I can do on a state level or a district level.
Voting season is upon us. And what better way to exercise your right to vote than by casting your vote for APUS floors and granite countertops to help you update your home? APOS offers design, fabrication, and installation of granite countertops, floors, and more for both residential and commercial projects. APOS is where customer service and commitment to the community come together. Vote today for APOS Floors to install your new floor and granite countertops.
Welcome to the Texas Transparency Project, where transparency perpetuates accountability. Our mission is to help people judge candidates, ballot issues, and public problems fairly. We focus on how a person will use power, how their choices will affect your daily life, and whether they can be trusted to use that power responsibly. Transparency means the public can see how leaders are using the power that we have bestowed upon them via the voting box. Accountability happens when voters use what they see to make smart choices at the ballot box. Public office should not be earned just because someone is famous, popular, or well-connected, because popularity is not the same as ability. If we do not judge leaders carefully, we can end up with selfish, harmful, self-serving leadership when we truly need selfless leadership. The Texas Transparency Project does not tell you who to vote for. We give you the tools to decide who should represent our communities and how to hold them accountable once they're in office. Today, we have Representative Helen Kerwin. She is in the middle of her first term and is seeking re-election to Texas House District 58. She serves Texans with the background rooted in local leadership and the private sector. Before Austin, she built credibility close to home in District 58 as a mayor and county commissioner. Focused on practical governance and community priorities, she also brings a small business owner mindset, budget discipline, results, and accountability to the table. During the 89th legislative session, Representative Kerwin emphasized issues that directly affect families, property tax relief, stronger tools to combat human trafficking, and parental empowerment regarding education and teacher education funding to improve the public school system. She also prioritized teacher pay and classroom support with a separate bill. While elevating concerns about PFAS and biosolids and their long-term impacts on public health and rural communities, she is a consistent theme of protecting Texas land, defending farms, water, property rights against policies that threaten livelihoods. Her platform moving forward is simple and direct. Eliminate property taxes, ban taxpayer-funded lobbying, enact term limits. She calls out for reining in out-of-control spending, keeping Texas rooted in constitutional principles, securing and defending the border, protecting farms, water rights, and resources, especially through the hostile foreign nations ban via SB 17. Representative Kerwin, thank you for joining us. You're no stranger to Texas Transparency Project. We appreciate your time. How have you been doing, and how's things going for you?
Well, thank you, Greg, for having me back on. I'm so excited to be able to talk to District 58, and I am in the middle of campaigning, which is one of my favorite things to do as far as a representative. So I just delighted to be here, and thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and we're so happy that you're gracious with your time, busy as an elected state representative. So thank you for joining us. And here again, you're in the middle of an election, a little bit different this time. Last time you were in a challenging a long-standing incumbent, and now you're the incumbent, and you have a challenger vying for your seat. How is the current election going? What are you hearing on the campaign trail, and how's your support been during the election process?
You know, I realized it last Saturday when we did our first day of block walking, and I just had supporters from my last campaign, and I realized the difference in going out now and knocking on the doors is so different because I have had a year in office. I had the 3 sessions in Austin, and I learned so much, and I just have a whole new perspective. And engaging with the people at those doors, being able to tell them more in depth and asking them for more about their life and what issues I can continue to help them with.
That's awesome. And anybody that door knocks and gets out, I think that's mandatory. I think Johnson County is still intimate and small enough to where that has a huge effect compared to some of the other counties. So it's good. And I encourage all people running for office to get out and door knock and face-to-face talk with the voters. So we're going to do a couple of things here. We're going to recap legislative session and some of your successes, and then we're going to talk about your platform moving forward. But we're going to start with what I'm asking every candidate during this election cycle, and that is the 3 W's. So as we start this, we want you to tell the voters who exactly is Representative Helen Kerwin in your own words.
I am first and foremost a representative in the true sense of the word. Whether I'm in district or whether I'm in Austin, I am constantly thinking of my district, of the people, how I should and can support them in any way.
And running for reelection, you had a very definitive platform your first time, and choosing to run for reelection. Why did you choose to run for reelection? Why are you asking voters to trust you again moving forward? And what is the main reason you're asking for people to vote for you a second time?
Well, the main reason is to finish what I started. And we actually got the 2 top planks of my platform done in the first session, which was secure the border against immigration and passing the school choice bill. But the third plank, which has now moved up to my first and most important job that I need to do if I'm reelected, is to eliminate property tax. I campaigned on that the last campaign season, and we made a lot of progress. I think it's got momentum with some of the bills that we did pass, and that is the main reason I'm running again, is to finish that. And then my second plank on the platform is to ban taxpayer funding lobbyists. Again, a tax issue. We have to look at the taxes in Texas that are burdening everyone, businesses, property owners, individuals. They are the 2 top things. And then my third is term limits, which I would love to get into when you're ready for me to discuss. That's a new and exciting bill that I look forward to filing.
Well, we'll get into your platform here in a few minutes. And the last one of the 3 W's that we ask all candidates is if you're reelected, and you've already have 1 term now, so this kind of applies to that. But what are the non-negotiable traits? What is the foundational grounding? What do you lean on when you're down in Austin? You're away from District 58. You're away from your constituents, and you're down there in what you've defined as the swamp. What do you lean on to guide you in your decision-making process? Which bills you decide to support or not support? What is your foundational grounding and your non-negotiables that guide you in supporting or not supporting proposed legislation?
It is always my district. District 58, Johnson and Somerville counties are I think of it every time I take a vote. The district is very conservative, 86%. And that's the second thing I think of, not only my district, but also the conservative grassroots principles that are in this district. And I always put that first, no matter what the subject is.
Fair enough. So we're going to recap some of the the 89th legislative session here. But before we get into some of the specifics that you had your hands directly on, what is one of the biggest shocker moments? As you were a freshman during the 89th legislative session. What was one of the biggest most shocking things that you were made aware of when you went down to Austin?
We heard about the swamp and campaigning for my first election. We always, at every Q&A, every public forum, every mailer, whatever it may be, we always talked about draining the swamp, and it became kind of the slogan. And it was a shocker on how big the swamp is and how powerful it is. And that was probably my biggest shocker of the session.
And disappointments. You had a lot of highlights. You had there was a lot of good things that came out of the 89th, and then a lot of things left on the table. What was a disappointment or something that you would have wish would have gotten more momentum, or maybe gotten past, or something that got past that you were against? What was one of the biggest disappointments you had while serving in Austin?
The biggest disappointment in the last session was not being able to make more progress for eliminating property taxes. We did the border, we did school choice, but for every citizen of Texas, we had to do better on property taxes, business taxes, individual taxes. All things taxes is what it affects all of the people in Texas. And we really need to do a better job. And that is something that I am determined to do when I get back there.
Well, that's the biggest thing that I think, here, staying here in Johnson County, that's the biggest thing I hear about as far as complaints go. And so talking about the disappointments, let's talk about something that you're very proud of. What is something that was accomplished or something that was kept at bay? Either one, an accomplishment or something that didn't happen that you're very proud of, and you kind of look at one of those signature items that Helen Kerwin had a part in, and you're very proud of.
There was a bill called the Hollywood Film Bill, SB 22, and it was lobbied for a month, and all the reps were talking about it. The public was talking about it. It was a very, very, very strong bill in the public eye in Austin, and they were asking for billions of dollars to support this industry coming from California to film in Texas. And I sat on the committee of 9 that had to vote on whether it was going to go to the floor or not. And we had full hearings on it. What made me proud is that I thought of my district during that journey and how the grassroots conservative voters here in Johnson County would feel if I supported using their tax dollars to fund an industry that is now thriving in California and bring them to Texas. And not only that, the workforce, it started at 75% for Texans to be hired. And by the time it hit the floor, it was 35%. And they never promised to tell our Texas stories. So on a committee of 9, 7 voted for it. 1 didn't vote, walked out, and I voted against it. And I think that was probably my proudest vote. My second proudest vote was to vote against the budget. And it's been growing every year. And it was projected to grow again like it has been. And I thought my district, and when I campaigned, I heard about the budget, how bloated it is. Don't support it, and I did not. I voted against the budget. So those were 2 big no votes that I was very proud to take.
That's interesting. Most people like to add stuff and put feathers in their caps, and the fact that you're choosing to keep something at bay and to actually save taxpayers a lot of money, that's some of that speaks volumes to your conservative nature and conservative roots.
Well, and that goes back to my local government experience. I was a firm believer in zero-based budgeting, where you don't look at the budget at the end of the year and you look for your needs and you add. I make you go back to the zero-based budgeting and consider everything that is in that line item.
Awesome. So now I'm going to run through, and this is going to take a couple minutes. I'm going to run through some of the accomplishments of your legislative session, and people can follow along on the screen as we do this. So during the 89th legislative session, it comprised 3 sessions, a regular and then 2 specials. So you authored 26 bills. Authors is the highest level of ownership. So 26 bills you authored. You joint authored 22 bills. you sponsored or joint sponsored 3 Senate bills. So what is a sponsor or joint sponsor bill? That's basically carrying a Senate bill in the House. An example of that would be Senate Bill 1212, a very popular trafficking bill that got passed, which you sponsored in the House. You co-authored 257 bills, and you amended 2. Both of your amendments were adopted. Amendment being a laser-like targeted influential tool specific to a piece of legislation. Just in the special sessions 1 and 2, you had your hands and your name on 52 bills. Now, a lot of those were relief bills for the disasters, but a lot of those too, you were bringing back significant property tax relief bills. So over the 3 sessions, Representative Kerwin, I don't even know if you're aware of this, but you had your name on 362 pieces of legislation. How do you feel about the volume of work that in 140 days you had the ability to have your name on 362 pieces of legislation?
Well, I'm shocked. And I've been accused of being overly productive. And I guess that's the proof. That's a lot of legislation. But I loved what I was doing. I loved to be able to hit that floor and consider legislation that would help my district. I love debating with the other reps. I love sticking to my grassroots when I took the vote. So and the 2 amendments were pretty thrilling too, to be able to make those 2 bills better in their journey to becoming law, which they both did. So I'm very proud of that work, and it is a great atmosphere. There's a lot of good reps. Of course, there's the swampy reps, and there's just the other reps that really sit on the bench. They're called, but we had some good bills pass for sure.
And you took action immediately after the last the second called special session. You were unhappy that something didn't get passed. Talk to us about the letter you wrote to governor, why you felt the need you needed to write a letter to the governor involving property taxes after the second special session adjourned. How important was it to you, and do you support the governor calling a special session for the property taxes and to address that concern?
Yes, again, because that was my main mission, and we just didn't take it far enough. And I wrote him the letter asking him to please call another special session. I would be in favor of calling as many special sessions as it takes to get it done. So, and I was hoping that he would, but he didn't. So, I'm looking forward to hitting the floor running in the next session. First and foremost, with the elimination of property tax, there were 22 bills passed for EPT by several of the different reps. I filed 4 in the special session, all a little bit different, and then I continued and filed 2 more in the special session, total of 6 on EPT. So I'm ready, and I've got some new ideas, kind of getting ready to craft the new bill. I'm talking to economists. I'm talking to Senator Betancourt, who is kind of the gateway in the Senate. I'm working with him, working with TPPF, and we have got some great ideas to craft some really great bills.
Well, before we get into exactly what you're looking forward to in the 90th session, if you are reelected regarding property taxes, let's talk about what you had your name on relating to property taxes in the 89th. So you filed 2 complete elimination property tax bills, House Bill 2220, which you authored, and House Bill 4648, which you authored. And I believe you worked with Russell Bennett's group and with Mitch Vexler's group on these. Why did you feel it was important to have two full elimination property tax bills go in front of the state legislature? And why did you think it was important that you get those front loaded and get them to the legislature? And explain to us what goes into the process of doing something that's accomplishing the same thing, but different lanes.
The journey after you file and you're assigned a committee, and then you knock on the doors of the committee members and the chair to try and promote your bills for getting a hearing. And then when you finally do get a hearing, and it's called a layout, and you lay out those bills, in my mind, it was so important to bring all and every concept of eliminating property tax to that hearing. And I think that's the importance of filing many more than just one bill. And those two bills were very different. 2220, Russell Bennett filed this particular bill in two sessions before my session, possibly three. And it is total and complete elimination of all property taxes. Now, the other bill was Mitch Vexler's bill, and that focused on eliminating property tax also through the consumption tax, which is the voluntary sales tax, where you choose. You're not assessed tax like property taxes, but you actually choose the taxes. So I thought that was a good alternative also. And the committee hearings hear the different avenues of eliminating the property tax. So to me, it was important for them to do that.
And then some of the targeted relief that you did, HB 2743 was dedication of surplus to property tax relief. HB 1952, that was putting the Central Appraisal District Board of Elections in the hands of the voters, not allowing the political subdivisions to nominate and allocate votes. Those are two bills that you authored, electing CAD Board of Directors and a dedication of surplus. Why was it important to you to push those property tax bills forward?
Well, the one on the surplus I was very excited about, and I didn't even think about it until we're halfway through session. And it just made me, because we were working with the budget and I was learning more about that process, why hasn't anyone thought to go ahead and add that as a line item on the budget every year, 50% of the budget? Why can't we return that to the taxpayers instead of allocating it to different line items in the budget? So I wanted to do that, and it read for 50%, return it to the taxpayers. Now the CAD bill, the 1952, was another avenue to help the taxpayers. Number one, asking that the majority of the board be elected, not appointed. Our citizens have not really been involved in the CAD board members. There's 8 of them. 3 are elected, but I wanted to have 5 elected. They would be the majority to represent the taxpayers. And I thought, well, that was a given. And we made that to a hearing. So we've opened the door. And I actually think I would file a bill now, because it was very well received with the other reps, to have all 8 elected from in statewide. I'm going to write it for statewide.
And yeah, I think that the more citizen representation we have, direct representation, I think that's awesome.
It opens it up to more transparency, and that's what all of government needs to be. And I learned that. I learned how opaque it can be in Austin.
And the last bill we're going to talk about is one that you did, and you co-authored this one, and it was a small business personal property tax exemption. A lot of people don't know that the personal property for businesses, it's taxed with property tax, and everybody gets focused on things like homestead exemptions and very, very targeted relief. But somebody has to pick up the slack. If we give one specific demographic targeted relief, even though they may be in the most need for that relief, somebody has to pick up that burden, so to speak. And small businesses often are never discussed in giving any kind of tax relief. Why did you feel it was important to allocate some form of tax relief to small businesses as they move forward?
That was a personal bill for me because I have survived in the small business universe. It started out with a hotel in Glen Rose, the restoration of the old hotel. Then I ran a flower shop for 15 years on the square, and then opened a bed and breakfast on our homestead to pay for the girls' college. So I have been on that journey on how tough it is to own a small business. And any relief we can do for small businesses, I'm on board. And that was a really, really important bill. We raised the deduction from $2,500 to $125,000 to help with them when they're paying their taxes.
Well, small businesses are the backbone of our country,
Mhm.
and we really need to help them as much as we can. Now we're going to talk a little bit about human trafficking. I know that this was a big priority to you. I just did an interview with you and the district attorney about kind of working together to make sure the left hand in Austin and the right hand, locally, are working together for that. You were involved with three specific pieces of legislation, two bills, and then one amendment. Senate Bill 1212 and an identical one that you authored in the House, HB 3231.
Mhm.
And then you were the companion for Senate Bill 1212. That raises the penalty of human trafficking to a first-degree felony. HB 3153 requires background checks in child care facilities, shelter facilities, places that usually go unnoticed in our people that prey on children frequently try to use as access. And then an amendment that bans predators from being within 1,000 feet of school buses and schools. So talk to us a little bit about the Senate Bill 1212, which you companioned, and identically wrote HB 3231. Talk to us a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the next two.
So 1212, that was a bill that actually did raise human trafficking from a second degree as an option to all convictions on trafficking to first degree. Second degree just carried a 5 to 20-year penalty. It wasn't enough. It's these people are so evil. And we have to be strong. And I was in full support of raising it to the first degree. And that is now the law.
And so 3153, that's a background check one. Some local political subdivisions have had some background check problems in the past. But why did you feel it was important, and how proud are you of this background check bill, which is for child care facilities and shelter facilities?
Well, as I learned more and got deeper into the trafficking universe and the legislation in Austin, I was stunned to find out that bill did not already exist, that no one had written a bill to require background checks for anyone, volunteers particularly. That was an open door where anyone could walk into a shelter, any kind of group home, rehab centers, and volunteer, and away they went and started working without a background check. So this law requires a background check for anyone that is going to work in any of those facilities.
And the last one we're going to talk about is HB 1778. This was an amendment. This was a bill that you didn't write, but you felt that it was lacking some protections, specifically involving school buses. Talk to us about the amendment process, why you chose to amend this bill, and what went into that decision.
Well, this was a bill that Representative Thompson, a Democrat, so it was nice to see we could do a partisan bill. And we discussed her bill, but where it was lacking was our buses, the bus stops, where a lot of kids we hear were abducted. And it also, it within 1,000 feet of any school grounds. They cannot get within 1,000 feet of any school facilities or schooling buildings, as well as any of the bus stops and the bus routes. So that closed a loophole that I thought that had been in existence too long. So I amended that onto her bill.
And I believe recently when we did the interview with District Attorney Good, you spoke on an idea you have of increasing training. And we won't go into specifics about that now, but you felt that some of the school district's employees and may be lacking some necessary training to be able to identify some of the signs and symptoms. Talk to us about how important it is to you that individuals that work with children on a day-to-day basis have the tools, have the training, and have the awareness and understand their role and responsibility in protecting children.
Well, again, learning the trafficking universe, when I discovered that the training in our ISDs all over Texas, possibly all over the nation, had this enormous loophole where the minimal amount of training, and it could be anywhere from a year to 3 to 4 years, where they have to repeat that training to educate them on looking for grooming, looking for any kind of children that might be involved in trafficking, the symptoms. There was no requirement other than that very, very weakness that I just said. So I look forward to filing bills that will make that so much stronger, where everyone that works in the school district that is around children is required to take hours that will open their eyes for this awful, awful industry that is becoming more and more in Texas schools.
And the last thing we're going to talk about before we get into your platform moving forward and what you're looking forward to doing if you're reelected for a second term is we're going to talk about something that's a little more personable here in Johnson County, and that's the biosolids PFAS issue.
Mm-hmm.
You authored and made it a big point during your last campaign to take this head on. I think it was the first bill filed. It was HB 1674. You rallied over 76 representatives on this. You also authored 1730. One of them was going to test biosolids being land applied, and the other one was pushing forward some studies. And then you joint authored one relating to annual studies for school lunches and public education system. Recently as October, there's been some more data come up to where this has become a lot more confusing and a lot more difficult, and a lot more questions have now been raised. Are you still looking forward to? Are you still on board with addressing this, but appropriately evidence-based? Where do you stand now on biosolids and the PFAS issue with some of the recent information that's come out? And what can District 58 look forward to as far as you gathering information moving forward in relation to this important topic?
This is one of the first things I learned about when I was campaigning. And the PFAS situation on the farms in Grandview really opened up a world to me that I did not know existed. And so I worked and worked and worked the floor to get those 76 signatures. And we got a hearing on it. We had a great hearing on it. A lot of the reps were not aware of the dangers of PFAS. And so I am continuing that fight to the point that I am reaching out on a bigger level. I learned that this is a much bigger problem than what we had here in Johnson County. And I am talking to I'm actually beginning to work with the biochemistry department at Tarleton. I am talking with the Dow Chemistry Council. USDA in Washington, the state of Michigan, the state of Ohio, and the state of Iowa all have great legislations on this, and I'm talking with them. The bill has to be bigger. It has to be better. The evidence has to be more conclusive from more sources. That was the problem with the bill, the 1674, that we really couldn't move it past the hearing. It was the first time they'd ever gotten a hearing on PFAS and biosolids. So that was a big achievement. But I'm looking forward, and Texas Public Policy has made it a signature bill for this next session also. So it is going to be more conclusive. We are going to get more scientific evidence from more sources that we should have done in the first place.
Well, the bottom line is Johnson County is a very rural community. There's a lot of farmers out there, and they absolutely need a seat at the table in discussing what happens with their land as we transition into a more urban thing. I'm really interested to watch that and to see where it goes. So we're now going to dive into your platform moving forward, and you announced your platform a few months ago at your kickoff. You had your kickoff here in Cleburne. And your platform basically is eliminate property tax, ban taxpayer-funded lobbying, enact mandatory term limits, keep Texas Sharia-free, rein in out-of-control spending, secure and defend our border, and protect our farms, water rights, and resources. And we're going to go down each of these, and this is right off your website. Anybody can learn about this, and this is on all of your documentation being distributed during your campaign. But your first and foremost is eliminate property tax, and you clearly state on your website, Texans deserve to own their own homes and keep more of what they earn. Talk to us about what you're looking forward to moving forward and eliminate property tax, what work you have been doing since session adjourned in the property tax world, and where you see the 90th session focusing on the property tax issues.
Well, I think in the 90th session, I think it's going to be the number one issue. The biggest obstacle I see is right now trying to make it clear that it's not so much an elimination. I think that's frightened people, that it is a replacement. And there's so many different avenues to be able to do that. And I think there are multiple sources for us to listen to talk to. Like I mentioned before, Senator Betancourt, he has his own ideas. Lieutenant Governor Patrick, Governor Abbott. There's so many paths to do this, and I think that in this session we can unify them. We can pick out the important things. We can debate, and I think we can get it done. We opened it up with the homestead bill last year by moving that up to the point that all seniors and all disabled have a $200,000 exemption, which means almost half, maybe more than half of the Texas citizens that are seniors and that are disabled are not going to be paying any M&O taxes. I think the important thing, as far as I'm concerned, and one of the first bills I'm going to file will be to state that this is for the M&O taxes, the school taxes only. I don't think we can take on all of the taxing entities right now, but I think it is realistic that we can eliminate the M&O taxes for everyone, every taxpayer in Texas. I think we can get it done.
Well, that is a bold goal. That would be roughly about 60 cents, give or take, on $100 per value. That is significant relief. And I think one of the greatest things about that is not targeted relief. That relief would go to every single property owner. How important is property tax relief to every single property owner, and making sure that a lot of the burden isn't just shifted to you?
Well, we have to do it for everyone. All taxpayers, we have to do it. And you're right, to keep it from shifting is something that we have to be very cautious about, and we have to be very careful moving forward. One of the ways we can do that is to make sure we rein in local spending, all spending, even the state. We need to look at possibly putting a cap on our spending at the state. That would certainly help. Now, the local spending, as far as doing that, I know we have the cities and the county that are concerned about that, and that is a very, very valid concern. And we have to look at being careful how we do that. I know one of the biggest issues right now is the taxpayer funding lobbying, and I am all for banning them. Actually, that's the second plank on my platform that I will work on after EPT. But we have to be careful too of the cities and of the counties. They get their education, so they need to continue that. They have a lot of representation in these organizations, TML, Texas Municipal League, TAC, Texas Association of Counties. These are local governments that I think we need to make sure we carve out in a bill, that they will be able to continue their education and their representation as far as their lobbyists in any banning taxpayer funding lobbyist. But I think that's something that we need to look at too that will help the EPT for all taxpayers. I think that it's very, very important that we consider any legislation moving forward, that we are considering the sustainability element of this. And I think that the only way we can do that is to rein in spending. And I know that we have every year, our budget's grown by $4.5 billion. And that's why we're looking at the budget too as a really great bill to be able to get this done. But we've got to make sure, just in case there's an economic downturn, we've got to make sure that we can sustain this for our taxpayers.
I think that's one of the biggest concerns is not being too aggressive to where you back yourselves in a corner, but aggressive enough where people see significant relief really quickly. And that's a fine line. And that, here again, that's why they call it politics, and that's why the legislature has to get together and sort that out. So you've talked a little bit about banned taxpayer-funded lobbying, and especially preserving some of making sure that smaller communities aren't left behind in the wash of Austin. Your third plank is term limits, and you've been very proud about term limits, and you've talked a lot about the importance of term limits, and you have a very unique idea regarding term limits. Talk to us about why you think term limits is important, and where you're leaning in regards to proposed legislation if you're reelected in relation to term limits.
I've been hearing term limits all my life. And I have also heard that how bad governments are without term limits. And then when I was campaigning, I started learning about the swamp. And when I got down to Austin and being on the floor and watching the dynamics, they call it inside the rails and outside the rails with the reps, and it hit me in the face that so much of the swamp is because of the longevity of some of these elected officials. And I would watch on a couple of occasions of them just going outside the rails and shaking hands, and the next thing I knew, the bill passed. No debate. It really kind of hit me in the face that we have got to get term limits through. We have got to do it. And I think that we will eliminate a big portion of the swamp. But how do you do that? How do you file a bill where you are asking the very elected officials to vote themselves out of office? Well, here's how you do it. You actually design the bill where the features of the bill, the terms you decide on, are not implemented until that rep leaves. Now, I know the first thing you're thinking is it's going to take a while. But if you design a bill, for example, 5 terms, 10 years in office, and then when they either retire or they are defeated, then the next person that comes into that office, that's when those features begin, and they will stay there.
Well, I think one of the biggest questions on term limits is you're right. It's you're asking people to basically create a rule that forces them out of a job, and you have a solution for that, which is it applies to the next rep up. The next rep gets elected after that law passed. That's the rep where those term limits apply to. And
another thing, I know another thing you're going to worry about, some people are going to, and I worried about this because you've got some great reps down there. I mean, they are representing their districts. We don't want to lose that experience. We don't want to lose that knowledge. So my bill would limit the terms, like I say, maybe 5. That's what I'm considering. And then stay out 3, and you can come back in for another 5. And that way we don't sacrifice the people that are really good at their job. But it cuts out the swampiness of the longevity, that it's so easy to fall into that corruption just because you're in there 20 years, 30 years. So that is a bill I'm very, very excited about filing, and I think that I could get it through.
So moving on, we're going to combine kind of 2 pieces of your platform here. We're going to talk about Sharia law and securing and defending the border. They're both kind of interconnected. The bottom line is immigrants are bringing Sharia law here, and that's coming, through whether it's H-1B visas, whether it's through the border or whatever. But you're a staunch supporter of strong borders, and that was a huge part of your first platform. So how important is keeping Texas Sharia free to you, and how important is securing and defending the border that you've put on your platform and made these kind of front and center?
Well, you're too young to probably know about Ayn Rand, but she wrote books back in the 60s. And she's the one that talked about it back then, that we are beginning to bring in the hostile foreign nation influence into our universities. Well, since then, I have learned that it is actually infiltrated all the way down into our elementary schools. It's taken decades, but you can see it out in the streets right now with the protesters. These are the younger people that have been impacted by what started in the universities all those years ago. In our recent school choice bill that we passed, no school that is attached in any way to the Sharia law will be considered by any applicant as a school that will be accepted into the school choice universe. I was really happy that the governor did that. So that is a start. Now, the ones that are existing, we have to look at further legislation. We have to dig deeper. Now that we're aware of the impact, we have these subdivisions that are springing up in Texas that are focused on that particular culture. We're becoming more aware, as we should be. And to compromise the education of our kids in elementary, in middle and junior, or even in high school, we've got to address it. And I look forward to voting on that too. As far as the border, yes, we did a great job in securing the border with immigration. But the problem is right now that it is still open to fentanyl. It's still open to trafficking. It's opening to the cartels. And we have got to continue fighting that. So we cannot let up on the securing of the border. That is a big, big thing affecting all of our communities. So I look for major legislation to be introduced on that. I will be filing 1 or 2 bills on that too, particularly the trafficking. Yes, that's a continuing fight.
I think one of the biggest concerns a lot of Texans have is, in the event post-President Trump, you get a very liberal president in there who unwraps some of the executive orders he's done. Now that's a federal legislative issue. I wish they would codify some of his executive orders into law. But I'm really looking forward and praying that Texas does everything it can to do what it can at the state level to, in the event our federal lawmakers don't shore this up. And here again, that's a federal thing. We won't go into that today. But the last thing on your platform is protecting farms, water rights, and resources. Johnson County is still very much rural. Johnson County is still very just a wonderful farming, ranching population. It is changing. There is a lot of suburban-esque influences coming here, a lot of developments coming in here. Talk to us about how important it is to protect farms, water rights, and resources to you, kind of what your vision is moving forward into the 90th session in regards to that.
Well, that's a two-tier question, and I think the right now, it just came to the top of everyone's list in the last session, and that is these data centers. The consumption of water is astronomical, millions of gallons a day. The impact on our grids is just incomprehensible. They are able right now to come in under the radar. I know when we began the session, we were talking about there are 30 in the state. There are now over 300, both applications and in construction. And that is in a year. So, and because we as Texans love our property rights, we want our government out of our life. We love the rural aspect of our life, as you said, in Johnson County particularly. It is going to be really hard to address this, but I think that we have to introduce legislation to not only study the impact that these data centers are bringing into our communities, but we have to develop guidelines. We have to make sure that our water and our power covers and safeguards and protects our citizens before anything else. And we can't be blinded by, we're going to add millions of dollars to your tax base. Well, guess what? In 10, 20 years, maybe a generation from now, we may be out of water. All because they accepted the enticement of an addition to our tax base. We have to be so careful on this. And that is the number one really, really concerning issue that I have for our rural area. The other is the growth, the sprawl coming down from Tarrant County. And look at Grand Prairie, they're annexing in. And Mansfield is growing. And all along the southern border of Tarrant County, it's looking to be a tremendous impact for not only our ISDs, but for just our communities in general, our cities, and of course our counties. I think that we have to be very, very careful. The MUDs are coming in. I think there's several right now that are in the queue. And we have to be very, very careful of the aspect of what they are asking us for with our resources. Above all, we have to protect our farmers and our ranchers, not only because of our resources, but because of the growth. And we may lose the very, very culture that we just treasure here in Johnson County. Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, we need. Yeah, it's. I moved here for some of the open space, and I'm not a farmer by trade, but I thoroughly enjoy the openness and the sunsets and the sun, the sunrises and the open air and the clean air and all that. So, anyways, so we've gone over your platform now, and before we give you a few minutes to talk directly to the voters, we're gonna talk just a little bit about what happens outside of legislative session. I think there's a lot of people that don't even really understand that the legislature is not always, meeting and debating and passing laws. a House of Representative member, which you are. That's a 2-year term. That's 730 days. Only 140 of those 730 days are in regular session. Now, there was a couple special sessions here, shortened down ones, but that pretty much leaves close to 600 days when you're not in session writing laws, passing laws, debating laws, and discussing the legislature. What does your office, your staff do when you're not in session? What type of constituent services do you do? What do you do with the local political subdivisions? What do you do with the local citizens? What does Representative Kerwin do on behalf of District 58 when you're not down in Austin working that floor and working committees?
Being in session is only 25% of a representative's job. And the other 75% is being in district and representing the constituents. And I have discovered I love session. I love policy. And I love being able to represent my district when I'm voting on legislation. But when I got back to district and I opened my office, I realized this is my job. Most importantly, what I love is and I'm open 5 days a week, 10 to 3. Anyone can come down to my office and talk to me, which I love. I did not realize diversity of issues and the passion of my constituents when they walk through the door. I right now have a transmission line that we are trying to prevent from going in front of the Dinosaur Valley State Park in Somerville County. And then I also have the railroad issue in downtown Joshua that we are finally getting TxDOT to move along. And last night we actually had plans presented where they are going to go ahead and take care of that and resolve it. But then I will have a lady walk in and say that she has tried to apply for her driver's license 3 different times and had to go home. They are all as important to me as each other, and the extreme difference of all these issues just make me so happy, and I love to be able to resolve them. And I can do it in this job, coming back to district and representing them.
Well, it's nice to see any elected official getting involved in the communities. I go to city council meetings, school board meetings all over the county, and I frequently run into you. It's nice to see our elected officials participating in other political subdivisions. I wish some school board members would get out and go to other school boards or cities, and other council members would, and some do, but the majority sit in their bubble. Before we get into closing up here and wrapping this up, talk to us a little bit about your interaction with the cities, county commissioners court, the school boards, and how important it is to you go and interact with them and talk to them about what's going on in Austin and what your plans are, and to listen to their needs in their local, because you're going to their meetings and talking to them. Talk to us about how important that is and how much you rely on them and their input, and how you, represent your constituents here in District 58.
I have 12 cities and I have 9 school boards, 9 school districts, and I go to each of them. And it is, and they're all different. And we have some really, really highly ranked schools in Johnson County. I'm getting ready to go to each of their ISDs and present awards to them for the recognition. They are on the Texas Honor Roll. And that's even more important than the A through F rankings. And we have a lot of A-rated campuses in school districts in Johnson County. It's a remarkable district. When you look at, and this is one reason I love to get involved and go to all their meetings, because I have learned that all but 2 of them actually got to the no new revenue rate for our taxpayers. And that's unheard of. So I hope anyone that's watching this and the constituents realize we have one of the most fiscal conservative commissioners court Also, as you can tell by the no new revenue rate, our cities, it's an incredible district. And I'm just so proud to be out and about. And one of the neatest things I found is when I am doing this and I'm visiting the different cities. For example, I discovered the Children's Museum going to Rio Vista. I was at a luncheon and I discovered the Crime Stoppers in Johnson County, the Pregnancy Center. There are so many amazing businesses, nonprofits, and groups above and beyond the cities and the county and the school districts. It's really thrilling. It's just one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life. I'm just honored.
Well, we are 1 week away from early voting beginning. Actually, less than 1 week, a few days away from early voting beginning by the time this video goes out. And come, late night on March 3rd, you're going to know whether or not the citizens of Johnson County, Somerville County, District 58 are trusting in you to represent them in Austin again. As they go to the polls, as they get ready to go and vote, what is the clearest promise that you want to make to your constituents? What is the clearest definitive statement that you want to make to your constituents as they go out and I have a decision to make regarding who's going to represent District 58?
The elimination of property taxes, I hear you. I hear it every day. I hear it all the time. And I am going to fight for that as hard as I can. And that I promise you. Along with that, the taxpayer funding lobbyists and, of course, term limits. And on my brochure, is that the camera? On my brochure, I have 7 of them listed. And I've talked, I think, about most of them today. I think I have. So I will continue to fight for all 7 of those as well as my top 3. And you can count on me to always vote with my district, no matter what the issue is. So I humbly ask you to give me another opportunity. And I thank you so much. It's been an honor being your representative. And if you made it to the end of this program and listened to me for an hour or whatever, I thank you very much.
Representative Kerwin, we look forward to seeing what the future holds for you in District 58. I'm a proud resident of District 58. We're going to ask you one last question before we wrap it up here. And, some people have made decisions on who they're going to vote for, whether it's for you, whether it's for your opponent. But the bottom line is a lot of people, and I encourage everybody I think one of the most dangerous things we fall into is falling into something that is too close and personal to us as voters, to where we become a single issue thing, and that drives us one way or the other. You as a representative, all representatives, all senators are asked to make thousands and thousands of decisions every year in legislative session on kind of what to what to do for the best interests of their districts. Judging body of work, judging totality of capability and focus and vision, and looking at what a representative, senator, whoever we're asked to vote on is grounded in is very important. For the ones that are still on the fence, for the ones that are undecided, for the ones that are going to make a last minute decision when they're in that voting box, what is the strongest reason that they should consider voting for Representative Kerwin and trusting her with another term?
As far as my legislation that I plan to pass and that I have passed, I just ask you to look at Legislature Online, and my voting record speaks for itself. It should tell you how I'm going to vote, how I will represent you. And as far as my district representation, please know that I am always available and I will always help any of you out with any issue, large or small, that I can do on a state level or a district level. Thank you.
Representative Kerwin, we want to thank you for giving us your time. We know that you're busy. You're in the middle of a campaign. You're more than welcome to come back during early voting if you want to update us on what you're hearing as the vote goes. And definitely would love to have you back, before next session as you win, lose or draw come March 3rd. You still are the rep until next year, so you're still plenty of time and plenty of work left to do. We wish you luck in the race. Where can people get to know you? You have www.texansovertaxes.com is a website. That's your campaign slogan. HelenKerwin.com. That's where individuals can get to know you. And State Representative Helen Kerwin on Facebook. So if you have any questions about Representative Kerwin, her platform, her record, you can do www.texansovertaxes.com or HelenKerwin.com or her Facebook page. And we encourage everybody to get out and vote. It's the simplest, cleanest thing that we can do as citizens to participate in the process and make sure our voices are heard. Voter turnout's always low. That's not acceptable. We need as much voter turnout as we can have.
115 South Main.
115 South Main is your office.
10 to 3, Monday through Friday.
So 10 to 3, Monday through Friday, 115 South Main. It's in the Wright Plaza, I believe. Is it Wright? Is that what it's called?
Wright Plaza, first floor.
First floor, Wright Plaza. If you have any issues or concerns, complaints or praise, go see Representative Kerwin in the Wright Plaza. Representative Kerwin, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And good luck in the race.
Thank you so much.